and suffocations, boils and ghouls. And welcome to Coldcast, the podcast for all of us. And we got a very special action-packed episode for you today. We are going to be going back and talking about horror films like we did about a year ago this time. And we're going to do a deeper dive on horror films. And of course, if you remember the last episode we did on this, there's only one person I could be doing this with. Let's bring him on in. I got Cousin Mike with me today. What is up, Cousin Mike?
Not much, man. Just looking forward to talking about this stuff.
Heck yeah, because there's so much more like we've got to cover, and we didn't really touch. We just barely scratched the surface on the last time around. I mean, shoot, we could do like a whole freaking like a show just about horror movies, man. I mean, there's so many difference in the genre and different like amazing films, and like I mean, you've pretty much seen just about everything out there. I would say, like there's stuff like I mean, I think I've seen a lot of stuff, and it's like, damn, dude, like. There's stuff it's just like, whoa, that you've seen. It's just like, oh my gosh. It was like the other couple weekends ago, like one I had never even really heard about, The Crazies. Which
Right.
it just scratched my head. Like, how did I not see this before? Because it was such a good fucking movie.
That's another George Romero flick right there.
Yeah, and it ties in with all the Living Dead series too, right?
Mhm.
Like pretty much all of his movies tie in together.
Yeah, he seems somehow to connect all his movies together. So
Which is pretty crazy. But if y'all have never seen The Crazy, seriously, go check it out. I think it's streaming on like Shudder. I think you can get it on Shudder. They're like one of those streaming services you can get it on.
yeah, it's on Shudder.
But it's so badass. So it's like pretty much the premise of it is it's like this small town and all these people start going crazy because like the government like was experimenting or something like with like some sort of like wasn't a parasite, was it? It was just like
No, it was a gas.
or gas. Yeah, that's it. And then they all just literally start going like ape shit crazy. And it's just a badass movie. Like it really is. Like I can't believe more people don't talk about it. Of course, maybe it's just something like I for some reason was in a closet about it, or just I don't know why I'd never heard of it, but once I saw it, I was like, holy shit, this movie's fucking awesome.
Well, they remade it. They remade it in 2008, 2009.
Yeah,
I think
that's
is
right.
what year. So I can't. I don't remember what your OG version is. It was
I think it was
73 or
73, wasn't it? Yeah.
something like that. So you got to make sure you get the original. Although the remake is not horrible, but there's nothing like the OG.
No, I couldn't agree with you more, man. I love the like so many different nuances of that thing too, like the cinematography. Like we were joking about too, and there's just like some shit in it where it's just like the characters that they just crack you up. There's like that fucking professor guy who's supposed to be like the leader of them, and he's always eating a goddamn sandwich or he's smoking a cigarette. It's just like it's one or the other. It's like what the fuck, dude?
Yeah, it was a. Well, he was part of the military.
Yeah.
He was in charge of getting the base set up, and yeah, he always seemed to have something to eat when he was
It's
on
just like
camera.
what the hell's going on here? It's like I don't know who he is, but I want to hang out with him. I thought it was cool too. Like there was a scene where like these townspeople who some of them are going nuts. I think it's like out of a church or something. And they're coming up like to the the military or whatever, and they're shooting at him. And there's this damn lady who has a broom.
As
And
the brew.
keep in mind they're walking in grass, and she just has the fucking broom, and she's just sweeping up the grass. Like there's like no care in the world. Like and all these people are getting shot up and shit. I think one of the military guys has a fucking flamethrower and sets this dude on fire too, and it's just like it's good shit. It's shit like that. It's like man, it just warms my heart. I just
Yeah,
love stuff like that.
yeah, it's a great movie.
And it's cool too when like you do finally discover it. Like especially for me, like as much stuff as I've seen, and like yet you can still find stuff out there like that. And it just goes to show you, man, there's just a plethora of horror movies out there.
Oh my gosh, that's what I love about Shudder
Yeah.
is every now and then I'll find something and I'm like, oh my god, and they're pretty good about doing like you know 2020 21 the new horror movies, but every now and then you'll just catch one of those like just totally bitchin' 1980 horror movies that you just never knew about.
Yeah, because they made so many back in the day. I mean, you think about it, it was just like it was the genre was just like okay, it was kind of like back in the day. If you look in the 50s, like when every studio was making westerns, like in the
Right.
70s and the 80s, everybody was making fucking horror movies, low budget thrills. I mean, it was just a formula that worked. And there's so many different titles out there, and like it for services like Shudder, it's awesome because like you can find all sorts of like just hidden gems.
Oh yeah.
Speaking of hidden gems, man, do you have any like? I know you do. Like, what's some hidden gems of yours like that maybe not everybody's seen, but like you would highly recommend? Which I know that's hard to just narrow it down. Like, let me get. I have a couple in mind.
Okay.
First off, one I will say I think doesn't get nearly enough like praise. Henry, Portrait of a Serial Killer. I think it's a
That's a
badass movie.
that is a good movie.
I mean, it's one of I think I don't know if it's Michael Rooker's first movie he did, but it's like one of the first movies he's in, and it's very like based like reality based because it's like I mean it's not like yeah there's some shit that's over the top and like violent, but at the same time too it's just like the way Michael Rooker like plays the character Henry. It's just like yep that dude fucking exists, and I think it actually was based on like a real serial killer too.
It's based. It's funny because I there's a documentary and I don't remember the name of the documentary, but Henry was based on a gentleman that his name was Henry. I can't remember his last name. Uh, that owned up to all those crimes, but then come to find out he didn't do them.
Oh, that's right. That's right.
So
Yeah.
they for all these years they're like, oh yeah, this guy did it, but then they come to find out that he was just coerced by the police. He was responsible for killing his mother, but like he didn't do the
All the other shit. Yeah.
yeah the 20 or 30 other killings that he had claimed that he did.
That's right. I forgot about that. And I think he was like I know the story's based out of Chicago, and I think that's where that the real life Henry is from, or at least like here in the Midwest.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you've never seen that movie, you should definitely check it out. I mean, it's pretty badass. Another one for me and I gotta be honest, I just discovered this about a year ago. Have you ever seen Shivers? It's
Oh
David
yeah.
David Cronenberg's first movie
Cronenberg.
he
Yeah.
ever did.
Hmm.
It's a badass movie, man. Like, so the premise on that one is it takes place in like a kind of an apartment complex in Montreal, and pretty much like these parasites get into the hotel or whatever and get into the people, and they turn them into these violent, like sex crazed maniacs. And it's just like the acting in it's like over the top, but like the way the cinematography, the way it's shot, stuff, it's pretty badass. And for it
Yeah.
being Cronenberg's first movie, it's pretty legit. Like especially on like the budget they had. I mean, it was like dirt cheap, and there's no real like famous people or famous actors in it.
Well, did you see that the lady from the Crazies was in it?
No shit, is she really?
That yeah, the lady that was at the drive-in, she's in that movie.
I didn't know she was in that. Oh my
Yeah.
god, is she like the nurse?
I can't remember.
Because she's blonde, right?
Yeah.
Holy shit! No,
Was
I
she the
didn't
nurse?
realize that. But now that you say that, I can see it.
Yeah, she was in that movie too. So that was some of the she was hawking some of those posters for the Shivers, and those are the only two movies I remember. And I think she
Wow, I
did a
didn't know she
vampire
was
movie
selling
too. But
like merch. Like I didn't realize she had a Shivers poster. I would have totally fucking bought that shit.
oh yeah.
Oh man, I don't know if I had a time machine. So what cousin Mike's referring to is we went to the drive-in. We always go to the Shelbyville Drive-in every year for the horror movie Massacre, man, and it's so badass. Then they always have like an amazing lineup of movies. Which, by the way, if you subscribe to our YouTube channel, you could totally check that out on our Halloween special. Just saying. But it was a pretty badass lineup this year. Like you said, we did the Crazies, they did Soylent Green, Videodrome, Nightmare on Elm Street 3, um, Chopping Mall,
So
uh,
yeah, Chopping Mall.
yeah, and several others in there too. But
The Thing.
the Thing, yeah, John Carpenter's The Thing, which, as we mentioned on the last episode we did on this, it's probably like our favorite horror movie of all time. I mean, it's at least I think that's what you said, right? Like
It is definitely one of my favorites.
it's,
Yes.
yeah, maybe not the favorite, but yeah, it's definitely in like in the discussions. That's for sure.
Oh, definitely.
Was there any hidden gems you could think of?
You know, when I really started getting into the older ones, the '70s movies, it's when you brought up Soylent Green. A couple of the what's the other one? Mega Man.
Omega Man, yes. Omega
Some of the
Man,
Charlton Heston movies turn out, and I never really, I always liked him in
Planet of the Apes.
Planet of the Apes, but realized that he actually had an acting career outside that was shocking.
Yeah, Omega Man's a badass movie. Like, in my opinion, 1,000 times better than I Am Legend. I mean,
Oh yeah.
okay, so if you don't know, yeah, Omega Man pretty much is I Am Legend. It's the same character, Robert Neville and stuff. The same premise. The difference in them is, in I Am Legend, they're kind of like these kind of weird, like, I don't know, vampire-ish kind of creatures, zombie
Hmm.
fuckers. But in Omega Man, it's like they're kind of more like zombified, but they can talk and stuff. And they're
Hmm.
all like albino, man. So they're all got like white faces, and they can't come out during the day because like the lights kill them pretty much. But yeah, Omega Man's badass, and Heston is amazing in that movie too.
Yeah.
I just love like the beginning of it. He goes like he's driving around LA, and he's like, and LA's deserted, and like he goes to a movie theater and he's watching Woodstock, the original Woodstock. And it's just like, he gets out of there and he's like, "Oh, it's getting dark or whatever, blah blah blah." And he's got to get home or whatever. And then like when he's like coming home, there's the zombie fuckers, like they like pop out, and like he just casually just has an AK-47 and just shoots their asses. It's just like so badass. And then it's like he goes upstairs into his apartment or whatever you want to call it. And he's like playing chess with some statue or whatever and talking to him, and it's just a badass.
It
Like,
is.
and here's a true story for you. First time I ever saw breast in a movie was Omega Man. And I remember because I seen it like, I don't know, I was like 8 or 9 or something. And my dad was just like, "Oh, I'm so sorry, boy." It's just like, no, don't be. But oh yeah, Omega Man's a badass movie, dude. I love me some fucking Omega Man.
The Hammer movies, there's some that are. I guess you just can't go wrong with a Hammer movie.
Yeah, let's talk about that. Yeah, the Library of Hammer movie. I mean, Hammer was pretty much the universal monsters of Europe, really. And I
Right.
mean, you've got like your mainstays of Christopher Lee and Peter Cushing, who was practically in just about the majority of them, like at
Oh
least
yeah.
all the main ones. But I mean, shit, you're talking about a library that's probably almost close to 200 movies, I think.
Oh yeah.
I mean, it just goes, and you're talking from the 30s all the way up to the 60s, really.
Mm-hmm. So all the way to '70s, because I watched a few
Oh yeah,
yesterday that
yeah.
they were mid '70s. Because I was like, I, I- you can see Peter Cushing get old through these movies.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, because I mean, he was in a shit ton of them.
Oh yeah, he was in a
I
ton of
mean,
them.
and kind of like the same concept too. I mean, they covered all the mainstays. They did Dracula, they did Wolfman, they did Frankenstein. Um, I did they do the Mummy? I feel like they probably did at some point.
Yeah, I'm not good with the Mummy. Um, I'm sure they probably have something very similar to it, or I mean, something down that because that's like you said, it's basically universal monsters. So
Yeah, and of course, like Dracula was played by Christopher Lee, and I think
Christopher Lee,
just
hmm
about every damn Dracula movie they did, which there's probably at least a dozen or something, if not more.
and then
Um,
Peter Cushing played a lot of. He was Dr. Frankenstein.
yeah, that's right. Yeah, I can't remember though who played the Frankenstein monster in those though. I think it was different.
It, yeah, ooh, I just remember how bad the makeup was on the Frankenstein monster in those.
Yeah, because it was like it almost looked like it was like in some of the shit I remember seeing, and I'm probably mixing different movies up here, but I remember it just looking like the makeup was about to literally fall off the monster's face.
Yes, yes. It was like
Just
paper.
like terrible, like applied prosthetic. It was like the cheapest shit they could get or something. But at the
I thought it
same,
was paper mache.
probably, yeah, that
Is
makes
what it
more
looked like.
sense. But it's I don't know. That's kind of the beautiful. It's as shitty as this. It's also kind of the beautiful thing about it too.
Yeah, that's
uh,
true.
yeah. Um, but yeah, if y'all like seriously, man, if you've never seen any Hammer movies, like go check them out. I think you can. What you say like Turner Classic Movies? I think they've got some streaming.
Yeah, here lately they've had just on Turner Classic Movies, the channel. If you get the channel, they've had tons of the old. Like they played all the Draculas yesterday. I sat and watched all of those. And then occasionally they'll just throw in some just really good movies.
Hell yeah! And there's probably some on Shutter too.
Oh, there's tons. And
Yeah,
they've got a whole Hammer section
yeah. That makes.
on Shutter.
You know what surprises me is that like shut that Hammer doesn't even just come out with its own streaming service because there's so many damn movies they have.
Oh yeah.
I mean, we talk about Universal and stuff, and they like to have the normal that we talk about. You're talking about maybe like a dozen films, if that. But I mean, freaking, they didn't have like over close to 200 damn movies.
Right.
It's like you could easily do your own like streaming service. So, and I mean, there's companies out there that do that. First one that comes to mind, Troma. Troma's got their own streaming service.
Do they really?
They do, yeah, yeah, and it's like it's cool too because they also, in addition to having their own stuff in there, like they've also reached out to other filmmakers. There's a guy I know who I met like a year ago. Pretty unique cat. His name's Kevin the Strange, and he's got his films are called like his company is called Strangeville. And they did like a ton of like independent movies in like the 2000s. The best way I can describe his stuff is like it's imagine like if a trauma movie was written by like Kevin Smith. Like so it's got a lot of dialogue in it that's like just, fuck fuck fuck, mother fuck, mother fuck fuck, just like very sexual and very gory too. But and like cheap gore like trauma.
Yeah.
But yeah, his stuff is on there. Like like their biggest movie he did, like that everybody seems to love, and you'll love this title. It's called Cockhammer, and it's like pretty much
Oh.
the premise of it is like this guy who's like a snuff film director trying to like bring back to life this demon or whatever, pretty much, and like he does these terrible things to try to get this demon to come back to life. Yeah, there you go. But yeah, Kevin the Strange. You go over to Strange. I think it's Strangeville.com or something like that. But if you just Google Kevin the Strange or Strangeville, you'll find him. Like I say, he's pretty unique cat. Got like a lot of different unique titles. Like another one I know he does is there's one movie he did called Colonel Kills Motherfucker, and it was like the premise of that was him like there's these friends that are getting together and like playing like D&D or something, and this like guy who's been discharged from the army comes back into town, and he ends up somehow getting turned into a zombie and some shit. He like targets going after them. I don't. It's just it's goofy fun, man. Like, and it reminds me a lot of like the Trauma movies too. Did you watch a lot of Trauma movies?
No, I really didn't. I mean, Toxic Avenger and Poultrygeist. There's been a few.
Yeah, because it's like you kind of like there was a period like in my teen years where I was like super into them. I was watching like all this, like you said there, like Toxic Avenger, Poltergeist. I was into like Class of Nukem High.
Oh yeah.
I always loved Surf Nazis Must Die or like
That
Redneck
was
Zombies, just stupid shit. Sergeant Kabuki Man NYPD. But yeah, they Trauma man, they got some weird shit. One thing I always loved about Trauma is like how they just reuse shit. Like they reuse the same fucking car crash scene to this day, I think, in movies.
Oh, I saw something on that.
You know what I mean? It's just like, I think they originally shot it for Toxic Avenger 2, and they've literally used it in every Trauma movie ever since.
Yeah, I watched something on that. They were talking about how they would just, things are so cheap, or they try to keep everything on the cheap that I mean, some movies are made from half of another movie.
I will say this about Trauma. What's interesting about them is they gave a lot of guys their first start. Like, and there's some on here people don't realize. Matt Stone and Trey Parker from South
Oh,
Park,
I did
because they
not know
did,
that.
yeah, because the first movie they did was Cannibal the Musical, which is like a comedy slash horror flick.
Hmm.
Have you ever seen it?
I have not.
No shit. Wow. Yeah, you'll have to check it out, man. It's like I say, it's pretty much a musical about cannibals, and Matt Stone and Trey Parker are doing it, so it,
Can't
it's
go wrong there.
it's pretty comical. Also, too, James Gunn, who we all know is doing like the Guardians of the Galaxy flicks now. Also did the Suicide Squad, but one of the first movies he ever directed was Romeo and Juliet, which
No kidding.
yeah, which that was obviously a spinoff of Romeo and Juliet, and it was just ridiculous over the top.
I remember that.
Oh my god, dude! Yeah, you ought. I think it'd be worth it just for a month. Like, just subscribe to Trauma, and then just like check some of their library out, because it got some weird shit, man. Like, some of it's just done like purposely over the top, but I mean, that was Trauma, you know. That's kind of their thing. Um, Talking about like other studios that have their own streaming service. I know Full Moon has their own streaming service now
Yes,
too.
yes, they do.
Which, I mean, gosh, they got a ton of content on there too. All the Puppet Master movies,
Hmm.
all the subspecies movies. Um, then that series they did later on. Did you ever see any of the Evil Bong movies? So fucking dumb, but it's just like, okay. Oh my god!
Yes.
So if y'all don't know, Evil Bong is a series of horror movies, pretty much based off of a demonic bong. That's right, a bong that comes to life and pretty much gets people high and kills them. So yeah,
There's like six, I think,
there's at least 6 fucking movies out there of that.
yeah,
It's just like, wow, like how could you milk one, let alone get 6 out of it? It's like,
that's what.
damn, dude.
Yeah, and I tell you what, I've been to conventions, and they seem kind of popular.
It's got its own cult following, really, just like a lot of
Yeah.
horror movies, of course. But yeah, but Full Moon's got some good shit though. I've always liked Full Moon. I've watched the shit out of the Puppet Master movies growing up, man. I love the Puppet
So
Master movies.
they've got Puppet Master 1 through 3 on Shutter now. I think is what I saw.
Nice. Like, and honestly, those are probably the best ones, but I really did like that, and I did like 4 and 5, because like 4 and 5 kind of like go together, as like kind of like, shit happens in 4, and then you got to watch 5 to see what happens,
Yeah.
the fallout from it. But yeah, the Puppet Master movies were pretty badass. I think my favorite one was I don't think he's called Pinhead, but or maybe he was called Pinhead. No, he wasn't called Pinhead, but it was like the dude. It was like the big muscular fucker, and
Hmm.
he had like a bowling pin for a head, pretty much. And I always liked Blade. Blade was a pretty cool one too. He was kind of like the leader, I thought. They had like the cowboy guy, and pretty much, guys and gals, what that is, the premise is it's literally puppets come to life and fucking kill people. It's like, I don't think you need to know much more than that. You know what though? I will say this on the franchise: the third one I thought got very creative, because it's like an origin story, and it's actually takes place in Germany during like World War II,
Right.
which is it was a pretty badass flick. So if you've never seen it, check out the Puppet Masters.
One through
Or
three.
yeah, just 1 through 3. Or you can check out and I think that's another one too. There's probably a dozen. I think I stopped watching after like 6 or 7. Yeah,
They go that high?
yeah, yeah, they
Oh
do,
wow.
because they did like Puppet Master Reborn, and yeah, it's like any other horror movie franchise. They got to milk it for what it's worth. But I grew up a lot on Full Moon too. Like I mentioned, Trauma, but Full Moon was definitely one too. Um, I liked too when they did the crossovers. Like they would take some of their characters to crossover. Like I remember they did Doll Man versus Demonic Toys. And I think they also may have did Demonic Toys against like the Puppet Masters.
Well, I remember. Did they just do a movie, Demonic Toys? Why is that?
I don't
That
know if
seems so familiar to me.
I don't know if they could have like remade it or something, but I remember the like Demonic Toys from back in the day.
Yeah, I remember an old movie where it was called Demonic Toys. I'm almost positive, and it was kind of like uh, Puppet Master in a way, but it was just the toys came. It was kind of like dolls. The
Yeah,
toys came to life and killed everybody.
yeah, yeah. I mean, I
I'm
think it's like
probably confusing it.
no. I mean, well, I don't know. Like I could totally see it. It's very believe. I mean, it seems like there should be like a dozen different variations and like
Yeah,
named for demonic. You know what I mean? Because like demonic toys is just like okay, that makes sense in the horror
yeah.
realm. Yeah, there should be a movie about demonic toys. Why
Oh,
wouldn't there be?
there's got to be. Surely, I'm not crazy.
Like, was there? Let me ask you this: like back in the day, as a kid, is there a movie that like just scared the shit out of you? But you watch it back now, and it's like it doesn't really scare you per se, and you're like, well, okay, why was I scared of that as a kid? Well, it's because I was a kid. But at the same time, too, you kind of think back to when you were a kid, and like, okay, yeah, that's kind of scary.
The Exorcist.
Yeah, fuck, dude. I still think that's like the scariest movie ever made, in my opinion.
Yeah, the Exorcist was. I remember seeing that as a kid, and I'll never. I remember the conversation my parents had. My mom found out my dad let me watch that. She was pissed. But no, I remember watching that, and I was like, it did not register in my head what the fuck was going on. But it was. I just remember just how creepy it was.
Well, it worked on so many levels. You think about it because of like you say, the creepiness of it, and then like as an adult, you realize like the reality of the situation. You know, like
Right.
possessing a fucking kid, and we're talking about Satan. It's just like holy shit.
Yeah. We watched episode 3 the other night. Just the other night, uh, we sat down and watched it. It's not that bad.
Wow, man, it's been a long damn time since I've seen the third one. Like I remember the sequel, like, and it was like Linda Blair was grown up, so to speak, or like a young
Yeah.
lady or something. It was just kind of like, to me, I just can't think it. Nothing will replace the first one. I mean, there's so many iconic scenes and lines from that, but
Oh
what
yeah.
always got me was like the ending of that with the minister, like where he's like, "Come into me," and his story arc in that movie is badass, man. It's just like crazy, and then like
Well,
how
that's
he just
where
throws himself out the window. Holy shit!
part 3 kind of picks up from that.
No shit.
Yeah, part 2, I don't like part 2. I mean, that's my personal preference, but part 2, I was like, no, this doesn't work. It doesn't make sense to me. And then part 3 kind of gets back on the original story.
Okay, I'm gonna have to check out the third one, man.
Yeah, the third one's
And I
pretty
think
cool.
that one came out in like '90 or something, or in the
Yeah,
'90s.
it was in
Yeah.
1990. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, that sounds about right. Nice. Um, and we talk a lot about horror. We're talking a lot about horror movies here, and I feel like we always what we gravitate towards like is the stuff from the past. But I think once you get past like the 2000s, it's really very hit and miss. It's like, in my opinion, most of it's kind of shit.
Yeah,
Um,
I
it
think now it's time to. It's like there's a huge gap.
yeah,
So the 90s, it was just shit. 2000s was 2000s. I think what maybe Scream saved. I think
maybe.
Scream kind of walked into the 2000s.
Well, I think like for me, what I remember is like into the mid 2000s when they went into a transition where it was all about the jump scare. It was all about like the supernatural, Like I think of
Yeah.
movies
Oh
like The
yeah.
Others and like the Ring and shit like that.
Yeah.
And I'm just
Paranormal Activity. Yeah.
Paranormal Activities, all of that, like, and I think really all that shit started with the Blair Witch.
Yeah. Yeah.
Boy, and to me, man, like I remember as a teenager, it was like, oh god, you gotta watch Blair Witch. And I remember the first time I saw it, and I was like, what the fuck? That's it? Like, really? That's it? Like one of the most overhyped movies of all time, in my opinion. Like I could never get into the Blair Witch. Like
It's
it's like you watch it one time and you're done.
yeah, that's it. Yeah, it's a one and done. Yeah.
It's not like it's like, oh man, what sounds good? Let's watch Blair Witch. And then they made the sequel, and it was just like,
Oh, and
and,
then the reboot, oh my
yeah,
god.
just fucking garbage. Now, if you're talking the Bear Wench, I'm okay with that. I just remember working at Blockbuster and those two titles coming out pretty much around the same time. But yeah, like the 2000s there was just kind of, I feel like what they did to make like some movies of relevance, and I'm thinking of movies like The Ring, and I'm thinking of movies like oh man, I can't think of the one. It was another one with like a kid and stuff, but they kind of turned over to international waters. They kind of started like remaking movies that was like horror movies
From
that were really
Japan.
from Japan. Yeah.
Yeah.
Man, that's gonna bug the shit out of me. What is that other one that had like it's not The Ring, but it's got like Naomi Watts in it, I thought. Or no, not Naomi Watts. It's got Sarah Michelle Gellar's in it,
yeah,
and
that's
she's like
where
a
wasn't
babysitter.
that called House?
Was it called House? Shit, I
I,
can't remember.
there's a because I remember seeing I don't remember shit. I kind of lost. I never really gathered to the uh,
Yeah.
they just weren't my kind of thing. They were the whole.
Did
No,
you?
I like the Japanese. I like the
I
actual
was gonna.
Japanese
I
movies.
was gonna ask you. Did you ever? How many? Like, have you watched a lot of like the stuff overseas, like Japan, like
Oh, dude.
out of Europe and shit?
Oh,
The
I
Japanese
watched the
stuff's like
Korean.
fuck.
They get sick.
Italians, yeah. Oh my god, yeah. They do some fucked up shit. Like the
Oh, love the old Italian horror movies. Oh my God, they're the best.
yeah. Like and those got pretty like disturbing as well. Like I think the most famous one out of them all that era was probably Suspiria.
Yeah,
I mean, that's
yeah,
a pretty badass movie. I think they remade that actually. I
they did.
never saw the remake, but I
Yeah, I
remember
haven't either. I
watching the
can't remember who
original.
made it. I don't remember who remade it, but it didn't. I don't think it went over well.
No, I don't think so either. And I mean, that's just such a that's one of those things where it's like you don't need to remake that, man. Come on, there's already too many
Man, some movies just need to be left
left
alone.
alone. Yeah, I totally agree. Like, and, internet like there's the of course the biggest one to me that comes to mind as far as like controversy and shit was Cannibal Holocaust.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and that's one where I try. Okay, I will say this. I tried to go back about 5 years ago to watch that again, and I couldn't get through it. I was just like, "Nah, fuck this shit. It's too, yeah."
It's not.
Because they were just doing shit in that movie just to like shock the fuck out of you.
Yeah,
I feel like as a younger person, I was kind of into that shit because it's just like I want to see all sorts of crazy shit. I was like the kid that's like, "Yeah, Faces of Death 1 through 6. Let's watch them all, bro." But now it's
Oh,
just like, fuck that.
I was heartbroken to find out that Faces of Death were fake.
Yeah, yeah, and
I
it
was
was
like,
like,
what?
no, it can't be. It can't be. Yeah.
Some parts I could, but there were other parts of the movie that were
You
like,
mean they're not eating monkey brains? What the fuck?
well, I like the part. One of my favorite parts is when the guy gets out of the car to film the bears and they knock his head off,
Yeah.
and his head rolls up to the car.
Yep.
That was why I was like, oh my God, that's what you get for fucking with the bears.
I always
That's
remember.
what you get.
I've always remembered too. Didn't they do like a because this actually did really happen? I believe like there was like a suicide overseas at a press conference or some shit. Like
Yeah,
yeah, they kind of did a reimagining of that as well,
yeah,
and that was just like whoa, that's crazy. But yeah, I
yeah.
agree. Yeah, the Faces of Death. Oh my gosh.
I
But
still wouldn't. I don't watch them anymore.
no.
That's
Yeah.
when I was younger, and I was just like, oh, I got to find the most gory thing
Gory. Yep.
possible.
Yeah, there's a time and a place. Yep.
Yeah,
I
and then
agree.
that was just. Now I think about it, and I'm like, it doesn't do anything for me.
No, no, it really doesn't. But yeah, like talking about like international though, man, like a lot of good shit coming out of Italy and stuff. Like and one genre we really didn't cover like on our last one, and there's so fucking many of these. We didn't really talk about like zombie movies, dude. And like
Oh
the
my.
first one that comes to mind, we were talking Italy, is like zombies and like zombies too, right?
Right.
Well, although I think it was called something different over there, wasn't it?
It's it's zombie 2 there. It's zombie here.
Right. Yeah. And this is the one. If I'm getting them right, this is the one with the infamous the zombie versus the fucking shark, right? One of the
Yep.
greatest cinematic fights of all time. What
I
happens
love
when
that.
Jaws goes up against a zombie? Oh my god.
I love that movie.
It's like so bad that's good, man. Um yeah, I'm right there with you. That's definitely up there. But yeah, of course we're talking when we talk zombie movies, you have to mention George Romero. I mean,
Oh,
like,
yeah.
dude, the man pretty much created the genre, did he not?
Uh, yeah, him and Fulci. Yeah.
Yeah, because I mean, yeah, you start with Night of the Living Dead. You know, one thing I loved about the Dead series with him too is like how he kind of dragged it out, like because you had Night of the Living Dead's in the '60s, Dawn of the Dead's in the '70s,
Oh yeah.
Day of the Dead's in the '80s. All fucking great. I think everybody's favorite, most people will tell you, is Dawn of the Dead, and I'm up there with that. But I really do love Day of the Dead as well.
Oh, Bub.
Yeah,
Bub the zombie, the one they're teaching
yeah.
to be smart.
Is that what it? I don't remember. Was that what his fucking name was?
That's his name, Bub. Yeah.
I don't remember that shit.
So he's the one that. Yeah, he's the one that they've gotten
I
chained up and
oh yeah,
clean, ready to
and he
go.
ends up like he's like shows a lot of like human characteristics. Like
Yeah.
I don't ever recall like I don't know. I guess I put that in the back of my mind. But Day of the Dead's a good fucking movie though, man.
Yeah,
I
it's
love
good.
the intro on that shit. You know, and like where she's dreaming and shit, like the zombies come through the wall and grabbing her and shit.
Yep.
Like you talk about a jump scare, that's a fucking jump scare, dude.
Those three, your night, day, or dawn and day, those three are the best. I have to admit, did I do kind of like the remake of Dawn of the Dead.
I was gonna say, yeah, I do think they did a pretty good job on the remake. It's not a bad movie.
That's where zombies started running.
Yep.
Yeah, that was the first one where they all started taking off and running fast. But yeah, I didn't think it was that bad. I think it's kind of it takes it more into a comedy because it is kind of funny.
Yes. One of my favorite comedic things in that movie is they do a remix of the Disturbed song "Down with the Sickness," and it's like all done in the uppy funk. You gotta get up to get down with the sickness. It's like what the fuck?
I love that whole segment of that movie when that song they do that.
Yeah, because aren't they
It's good.
fucking playing like golf or some shit? Or is
Yeah,
this
they're all
yeah,
individually all doing just
yeah,
weird
just
shit.
doing weird shit, and it's just like, yeah. But when they're playing golf, they're like hitting zombies, in the
Yeah.
parking lot. It's good shit. Hey, what did you think of Land? Was it Land of the Dead? Like the fourth
Man,
one?
it was okay, but I mean, once I get past Day of the Dead, I'm out.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's like they tried, but I feel like they just kind of missed it because it was like almost 20 years too late, you know? I felt
Yeah,
like, I mean, but yeah, and it did have, was it Dennis Hopper in that? I think it was, fuck, I think that may have been like one of Dennis Hopper's last movies he did.
yeah. One of them, I remember one of them had. Is that the one? That's not the one with John Leguizamo in it too, is it?
Maybe, I can't remember, but,
Yeah, I think
it
I
could,
think it
it
is.
could be, but it's, but like all the stuff Romero did was badass, I always thought. Like, I remember like, right when Walking Dead came out, and I'm not talking the show, like in comics when like they were coming out, like Image, and it was like Kirkman talked a lot about like how he was heavily influenced by Romero,
Oh
and it
yeah.
made me like kind of because I was into that series from the get go, and it made me kind of go back and watch the Romero movies and just realize just the importance of like
Hmm.
that to not only to like the zombie films but like horror films in general, man. And there's been some other good zombie ones over the two. We mentioned like Zombie 2. Um, they're like, even though this is much later on, I gotta say, and it's more a comedy, but I did like Zombieland. thought that was pretty funny.
I didn't think they were bad at all.
Yeah, no, not in the least bit. I think the first one's better than the second one, but I just love like the comedic elements they put into it. Plus, the cast is really good too.
Hmm.
Um, what's some other ones you can think of over the years that was a really good like zombie flick? So I feel like the
The
2000s they did this a ton of them because there's like they're out of ideas and the majority of those suck.
Well, my all-time favorite, aside from Dawn of the Dead, is Return of the Living Dead,
Oh fuck!
which
How could we forget that?
which they make reference to Night of the Living Dead, and they kind of reference the crazies in it too.
Yeah, that's right. You
So
pointed that out, and I did not realize that, but you're
yeah,
absolutely right. They do. Yeah, Return of the Living Dead's such a good fucking movie.
that's like one of my all-time favorite movies,
Yeah,
just
it's
hands down.
easily top 5 for me as far as horror movies. Like,
But that
such a
I'm trying to
well-paced
think.
movie, like
Oh
great
yeah,
cast.
it's just it's just it's just perfect. It really is. It's got the perfect drama and the perfect
Yeah,
comedy value to it. I don't know. It's just a really good movie.
the gore is awesome in it.
Oh yeah, great gore.
I love like when they're eating the fucking ambulance guys and they're coming across the radio and like the zombie's like send more brain and then like he corrects himself, send more people.
Send more paramedics.
Or
That's
paramedics, yeah, that's what
that's
it
what he
was. Yeah, yeah,
says.
yeah,
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 I
yeah.
remember. That's one of my favorite lines.
Yeah. Oh, is you know one too? Like a scene, it like kind of talking about that in that scene too. Freaked me out was like they had the dwarf in the zombie gear and shit. And it was
Oh my
oh my
gosh.
god! And it was like chasing, but it was like supposed to be like it was like a zombie that didn't have arms or legs. It's like holy
Yeah.
shit!
Yeah.
Still scares the shit out of me to this day,
That
dude.
is it is pretty creepy if you think about it.
No, it totally is.
Yeah. See, I'm trying to think of I can't really think of any more zombie movies. Once The Walking Dead came out, it seemed like zombies got played out so bad because
Yeah,
everybody was making something, but they all just kind of fell short.
yeah. Yeah, that's very true. But like you say, with Return of the Living Dead, the Romero flicks, I mean, those are the piece de resistance of
Mhm.
like those type of that genre of films. Let me ask you this: how do you feel about like horror comedies? And what I mean by that is like movies that are like that come out and like they're presented as horror films, but a lot of people more so like treat them as like comedies. The very first one that to me that comes to mind is Clear Killer Clowns from Outer Space.
Oh yeah,
I mean, just
I I think all horror movies should. They all have, if they're really good, they all have a bit of comedy in them.
that's
I
a good
mean,
point. Yeah, you got to have a little bit of comedic elements into it too. So that way the crowd's kind of like not
you know how
so just
Freddy had one-liners.
yeah yeah.
He always
This
had something like that. And then, I mean, some of the death scenes were always kind of funny. Like in, Friday the 13th had just some of their movies were just kind of like, uh, had just a little humor to them. I don't think they meant to be funny, but it just
no
kind of turned out that way. But it seems like if they've got, well, I mean, best examples: The Evil Dead, Evil Dead 2, and Army of Darkness.
yeah, especially Army of Darkness too.
I mean, if it wasn't for Ash being just flat out funnier than hell, I don't know where that movie would be,
Yeah,
or
I
any of them.
I totally and wholeheartedly agree. Like Ash is like it's funny how that franchise started and how by the end of it, or at least by the time you get to Army, it's just like the Evil Dead. All you think of Ash. That's the fair. You don't think of the book. You think of Ash. I mean, Bruce Campbell makes those movies. How about like another genre we didn't really cover last time when we talked about horror movies, like the big monster flicks, man. And of course, the first ones that comes to mind there is you got to talk about all the Godzilla movies, man.
Oh, I love all the old ones. I love the 50s Godzillas, the
Yep.
60s. Uh, Once they started getting into about the 2000s, they were like overly Japanese.
Yeah.
Um,
I tell you what though, they put one out a couple years ago, and Toho got involved with it and like produced it. Have you seen Shin Godzilla? It came
no, I
out
don't think
about
I
like
have.
3 or 4 years. It's a pretty badass flick. So like it's kind of like it's a retelling of Godzilla, but they kind of go with it like from a scientific perspective, like if this shit somehow really did happen. So it like kind of shows the metamorphosis of Godzilla. So he's like kind of like a sea monster, and it kind of shows him forming into where like he's walking on like his back legs and shit. It shows him growing into like Godzilla, and how they
Huh.
like how the Tokyo and everything's like treated as like a natural disaster. It's a pretty good flick, man. It's got really cool elements from the original. Also, something too, like yes, there's CGI in it, but they kind of made the CGI kind of make look more so like a practical effect, which I really fucking appreciated about it. Because I
Hmm.
mean, there's just you can't beat a guy in a rubber suit. Come on, man.
That. I think that's what I love about the old ones is I
uh,
love how cheesy they were,
yes.
but the stories weren't bad. I mean,
No, they
they
weren't.
were all the same, but you knew he was going to fight another monster. You were just, who was he going to fight? What was he going to tear up? What city was going to get destroyed? Well, Tokyo. But no, I just love all those old Godzilla movies. Those were I remember growing up. They were my favorite.
Who was your favorite Godzilla like villain?
Um, well, it's probably kind of cliche. Mothra.
Mothra, yeah.
Yeah.
I gotta go with King Ghidorah. I thought was pretty badass. Ghidorah, or however the hell you say that. Also, too, what was the fucking turtle one? God, I can't think of it. It's
Oh, Gamera.
Yeah, Gamera. Yeah, Gamera was pretty badass. Destroy All Monsters, probably one of my favorites out of them all, because I mean, you got all of them, and like, how? Let me ask you this, dude. How did you feel about like the recent Godzillas that's come out over the past couple years? And I'm not
um,
talking like the one I was talking about, but like the big budget ones made by Warner Brothers.
yeah, I liked them.
I did too. Like they weren't as bad. Like of course the one in '98. We're not even fucking going there.
No, no.
But yeah, the first one was good. Then Godzilla King of All Monsters, I think, was the best one out of them. Godzilla versus King Kong, it was alright.
Yeah, it was my least favorite, but yeah,
Yeah,
it was okay.
yeah. The one thing I do like about that one is how they introduced Mecha Godzilla, which I do love me some Mecha Godzilla.
Oh yeah,
Yeah, got to give a shout out to them. But and then we mentioned King Kong. I mean, King Kong movies from back in the day, like the original one, of course, one of my all time classics. I also I think you gotta give a shout out to the one from the '70s too, man. That's what I
that's the
grew
one
up
I
on.
know. Yeah, I remember watching that as a kid. That was a good one.
Yeah, with Jeff Daniels and Jessica Lange, right? I think
Jessica Lange.
yeah,
Yeah,
Jessica Lange was in that. Yeah, she was a fox in that movie too. But
yes, she was.
yeah. Um, Now I didn't really care for Peter Jackson's King Kong. Wasn't I mean it was okay. And I didn't really care for like Skull Island and shit like that.
Oh right,
Um,
right.
No, let me. What about like the original Kong versus Godzilla though? Like that one was just fucking cheesy as hell. But like I think as like watching it as a kid, I was like, yes, this is finally happening. Let's fucking
Yeah.
go. Yeah, it was. Is it worth watching? Maybe once, and then
Oh, it's all. Yeah, it's worth watching.
I think I would at least say that. But and there was other like big monster movies throughout that the one. Let me tell you, here's one I never really thought like or quote unquote monster. I don't think they really did as much or haven't done as much of them nowadays. I don't understand why. Now I'm not going to count Jurassic Park, but they need to do like more like horror based fucking dinosaur movies, dude. There was some back in the day. You had your Carnosaurs. You had your oh God, do we really need to count like Tina and the T Rex or whatever the fuck it was?
Oh, Taming the T Rex.
Tammy and the T Rex, yeah, like that was that movie is fucking terrible, but I love the story behind how that movie was made.
There's a
Uh
lot of people that really dig that movie.
yeah, I like it. I'm right there with them. I thought it was a fun movie, but what I love about it the most is they shot that fucker in like 10 days or something. And
Hmm.
it was all pretty much because this guy ended up like was supposed to be transferring and taking this animatronic dinosaur to like some theme park or something. And it's just like, hey, I got this shit for like 10 days. Let's make a fucking movie. And that's literally that's literally how that movie got made. And like,
so they made that movie in like 10 days?
Yeah. Like at least the main parts with like the dinosaur in it,
Uh-huh.
So if y'all don't know, which by the way, you can get this on Shudder too. So the premise of this movie is just pretty much it's like a guy gets killed by some mad scientist, or no, he gets killed in a car wreck. He dies somehow, but his brain ends up like getting put inside of a fucking dinosaur. And like it's funny because there's two versions of this movie. They made a kid-friendly version, and there's an R-rated version. The R-rated version way better because the dinosaur's fucking eating people and shit. It's awesome. It's got like a lot of like actors in their first role, like Paul Walker, first movie he did.
Yeah, I was gonna say I thought it had a fairly decent
Denise
cast
Richards is in it. Oh, it's also got now he's grown up, but it's also got the kid from Children of the Corn, Malachi. He plays the mad scientist in that movie.
Right.
Yeah. And there's a couple other actors I think in there too, but those are the ones that kind of stick out. But yeah, Tammy and the T-Rex, holy shit! But seriously, I want to see like a big budget dinosaur movie where the dinosaurs are just eating fucking people. Like for me, I would love it if somehow they turn Dinosaurs Attacks. You remember the cards from back in the day? Turn that into a fucking movie. I'm there for it. I want to see
that. Now, see, when I was a kid, I cannot remember the name. The guy that did the claymation is like super famous, but these movies would have been done 50s maybe.
Yeah, kind of like Journey to the Center of the Earth and shit, kind of like that.
It's kind of like that, but they were always against dinosaurs.
Yeah, and
so it's been there. It's just not today's standards.
To me, you could totally make a big budget movie out of that, and like just make the dinosaurs fucking evil, man. Because dinosaurs are evil at the end of the day. I grew up on Dinosaurs Attacks, the card trading cards. I don't know if you remember those or familiar with those.
I think I do.
But it was literally just trading cards of dinosaurs eating fucking people and shit, and like doing the most terrifying shit. Like I remember there was one card where it's like the dinosaur literally is like curb stomping a dog, and it's just like that's fucking terrible. Why as a 5-year-old I want to see that shit.
What was this? Was Dinosaur Attacks? They were trading cards.
They were trading cards. So it was a spin-off of Mars Attacks, and these come out in the 80s, and it was called Dinosaurs Attack. Yeah.
Jesus.
Yeah, like when we finish up here, you should totally just Google Dinosaurs Attacks.
I'm gonna.
You'll see what I mean, and you'll see some pretty fucked up images. But they need to turn that into a horror movie. Maybe not so much with the curb stomping of the dogs, but just they do some other crazy shit in that movie. So.
Wow. I did not know those exist. I don't think I knew those existed.
Oh, bro, it's gonna change your like opinion on dinosaurs. For me, it's just like because I grew up, and we talk about this on a podcast too. But like, I grew up like in the era of like where dinosaurs are cool and hip, and they'll come back to life, and they'll want to be best buddies for you. But I saw these trading cards. I was like, nope, no, they're not. They're gonna come out and fucking gouge my eyes out and eat my intestines. Fuck that shit. I don't want anything to do with fucking dinosaur. But anyways, I digress.
They lied.
Yeah. Another genre of movies we didn't really talk about a whole lot, werewolf movies, which I think there's been a ton over the years, but there's been some bad ones, but there's been some good ones too. I think my favorite is probably American Werewolf in London.
So yeah, that would have to be. I would probably rank that. I'm gonna go with Howling.
Oh fuck, that's good. Yeah, Howling.
And then I would go American Werewolf in London. I like them both. I think they're both good movies.
Yeah, that's a good. Those are pretty good ones to go with, I would say. I love American Werewolf in London. What I liked about it is they tried to kind of approach it like from a if this really happened kind of standpoint.
Mm-hmm.
Because it was like, if you notice, it was like, the Wolfman and stuff, they was always like walking upright and they were like very human. Whereas in American Werewolf in London, when he transforms, he becomes a fucking werewolf that just wants to
Yeah,
eat people and shit. And the
yeah,
makeup in that movie, holy shit,
yes.
so ahead of its time. Because that movie came out in like 81 or 82 or some shit. And it's just like, it's such a good fucking movie. I watched it here recently again, and like, well, the one scene I always forget about that's just over the top is you remember when he's in the hospital and he's like has a dream sequence and it's like a
Yes.
nightmare, and these fucking zombie monsters show up and they fucking. It's like him and his family. They're at home having a nice quiet evening. They're watching the Muppets on TV and shit. And these zombie monsters show up. They shoot his dad up with an AK-47. Like he's got a little brother and sister, and they shoot them up, and then they're holding him hostage while they're doing this shit with a knife against his throat. And then fucking they have a flamethrower for some reason too, and they're setting his house on fire. I think they set his mom on fire. And then like
His
after all this
mom,
shit's done, like they slit his throat. It's like, what the fuck?
his mom gets ejected from the whole scene. I remember that.
Oh yeah, that's
That one
right.
minute she's standing there, it's like they just catapult her ass out.
Yeah, they just like it's just like what the fuck? And then he just wakes up, he's like, oh, bad dream.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but then I remember they're all Nazis. They all have like Nazi stuff on.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they've got machine guns and they're monsters.
It's just
Eh,
stupid. It's fun,
it's
but
weird.
yeah, it's very weird and doesn't make sense why it's in that particular. But hey, man, it's part of the flick. So, American Werewolf in London. So that's probably my go-to. Like, there's a ton of vampire flicks out there too. I mean, I think everybody goes towards Dracula and shit like that. I like, for me personally, I probably my two favorite I would say is Lost Boys. I think Lost Boys is the
Oh,
best one. But then not too far behind is I love Fright Night, and I'm talking the original Fright Night.
yeah.
The remake was okay, but the original one is just so much better in my opinion.
I was actually quite surprised at the remake. The remake wasn't that bad.
No, it wasn't.
They did a fairly decent job. But no, the OG, it's like I said, some things just don't need to be remade. So I just stick with the originals.
I couldn't agree with you more there. Let me ask you this, man. Like, one, there's so many, and we kind of touched upon this before. There's so many damn franchises of horror movies out there. Like, it's not even funny. And like, just like when we say franchise, you're talking like, they milk the shit out of the movie where it has like 7 or 8 different, 9, 10, some
Right.
cases. In your opinion, what do you think is the best like sequel? And what I mean by sequel is like anything like from 2 to however many they made that like kind of stood out for you in the series. Like I'll give you mine for example. I always loved Nightmare on Elm Street 3, which I guess that's kind of an easy one to choose, but like Dream Warriors is such a badass movie.
Yeah.
And I kind of like over the years, I've kind of grown to like 2 for what it is. I mean, it's fucking it's just stupid, ridiculous. But it is like I like both 2 and 3. I would say. Have a feeling you're probably going to go with like a Friday the 13th, one of them, right?
That's where my mind's taking me. But I'm trying to think outside the box a little bit, and maybe there's something out there. I don't know. Gosh, it's hard to pick against Evil Dead 2 because Evil Dead 2 to me is just like the greatest movie of all time.
Well, the way I look at it is like, okay, now we've got money, we can do more shit that we wanted to do in the first one. You know?
Exactly. But if I were to go with, I probably would have to pick a Friday the 13th because I'm all about 1 through 6. I think were all good movies.
Yeah.
But to beat one, I would probably pick
And let me say this: maybe it doesn't necessarily have to beat one, but just like it's just up there with one. Let's let's
up
let's say
there.
that.
Yeah, I'd say that part two. I mean, part two was just as good as part one, which it's hard to do.
Yeah, it's a hard task to do. Like, because I mean, if you don't have the first one in these franchises, then you don't have all the shit ton of others.
Right.
So, I mean, some are good, some are bad. Like some you scratch your head, like how did that? Like we mentioned Evil Bong earlier, like the Leprechaun series. How the fuck is there like
Oh my
7
god.
movies? You know what? I realized the other day, like when we were filming some stuff for our Halloween special, I come across like a Tremors pack of movies. You realize they made 7 of those fucking movies?
I do,
That's
unfortunately.
crazy. Like the first one, I love the first one, but
First one
outside of
wasn't bad.
that, like no, you don't need to redo it over and over and over and over again. It's like, come on, man.
Yeah, yeah. The 7, I don't know, man. I don't know how they got the money for it.
No, I don't either. It's just like, and you know that shit was like straight to video. It was just like, fuck it, let's.
I think they're towards the end they were.
Yeah, absolutely, had to be. Had to be. Hey, you know, an important element of horror movies that we haven't really touched on either, I think, is the soundtrack, man. Like whether it's the
Oh yeah.
score, whether it's like actual songs on the in the movie or whatever. And there's been some great soundtracks over the year. What's some of your favorite ones that you can think of?
Well, as far as scores go,
I
I'm
think
a
anything John
huge
Carpenter.
I'm a huge John Carpenter fan
Yeah,
because I could just hear a segment of this score and I know exactly what movie it is. I could probably tell you what scene it is, and
yep.
I mean it's just, all the way from Halloween to They Live. I mean, well, even Carrie, or not Carrie. Oh shit, why did
The
it just slip
Thing.
my mind? No, the car, Christine.
Oh, Christine. Yeah, 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 yeah.
Yeah, because he did that, and I
He did.
mean,
Yep.
it's just you just know it's his stuff,
Yeah.
and
I think he's definitely the best composer. Um, as far as the soundtrack though, there's two that come to mind, and we've already mentioned these movies, but there's soundtracks you got to talk about. Probably my favorite, Return of the Living Dead.
oh yeah,
Oh my
yeah,
god, that is such a good fucking soundtrack, dude. Like I've got that on vinyl. I've actually got like they put out a special limited pressing ones where it's like the album covers like blood and stuff, like they're
yeah.
red. It's badass. Um, Nightmare on Elm Street 3.
3
Great
Dream
fucking with
Warriors.
all the stuff, yeah, with all the stuff from Dokken.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Into the fire. Oh man, that's some good shit right there, brother.
I think you nailed it.
Yeah. um fucking like, and you know other scores too. There's some, and that's the great thing with horror movies too. There's like some that you hear like the theme and you know what the fuck it is. You hear
Oh
that.
yeah,
You hear that. You're like, okay, yeah, Friday the 13th.
yeah.
You hear the Halloween music, you know it's Halloween. You hear the Nightmare on Elm Street theme, you know exactly what it is.
Exactly.
Yeah, and I mean those are huge parts about those films too, is the scores and the music in them. All right, dude, I'm gonna put you in a tough spot here because last time we talked about everybody talks Mount Rushmores of stuff. Last time we did this, we did the Mount Rushmore of slasher killers. I got a tougher one this time, I think. How
Okay.
about the Mount? Give me your Mount Rushmore of horror directors.
Ooh.
I know, right?
Oh man, let's see. We're definitely gonna put John Carpenter right there on the
Yep.
top.
I know the first ones to come to mind for me is John Carpenter, Wes Craven. Got to go on that list.
Old Wes Craven, yeah.
Yeah. I'm putting George Romero on there.
Oh, well,
You
definitely.
got to put him on there.
Sam Raimi.
I think yeah, Sam Raimi's got to go. So there's like 4, but there's so many others. So I feel like you could possibly be leaving out there. I mean that's a
Oh, I
pretty
mean,
damn
we're not
good.
even we're not even talking about the Italian directors because
Yeah,
there's about 4 or 5 Italian directors that are outstanding.
yeah,
Um,
that's true.
Shoot the Killer. We were talking about zombie movies. I forgot to even mention this. If you've ever seen, have you ever watched any South Korean zombie movies?
I don't think I have. Like if
Oh
I
my
have,
God,
what
like
like you?
Train to Busan.
No, never heard of it.
Oh shit, dude. I don't know what that would be on. If that's on Shutter, if it might still be on Netflix, because I think that's where I saw it was on Netflix a long time ago. I'm totally into the South Korean movies. They do some pretty good horror movies.
I can
Uh,
respect that. I feel like there's a ton of good like stuff from over there in Asia that there's some like hidden gems you could easily discover as well.
oh yeah,
I
I
mean,
totally
I've
was
kind of
spacing
seen
that.
the stuff that's like more known, like Audition. Wasn't that a
Oh
Korean flick?
No, it was
Or is
Japanese.
that Japanese? Okay.
Mm-hmm. Oh,
Yeah, that was a fucked up movie.
that fucking movie. Ooh.
Yeah. What was the one that came out? And I don't think it's an Italian movie, but like I was thinking of Audition. Like, what was, or was it Audition where like the chick's got the vagina that's got like the freaking teeth?
Oh,
What the
no,
fuck
it's
was that?
oh
Because I feel
shit.
like that was a Japanese movie too, or something.
Well, they might have made one, but there's an American version.
No shit.
Fuck, it's not It Follows. I think it's just called Teeth.
Yeah, I think you're right.
Dude, that's a great movie.
Yeah, that's fucked up, but yeah.
Yeah, that's a really
Hey,
good movie.
you know, a guy we didn't really mention, and like you obviously, when you talk about him, you don't really think horror movies, but he's got a couple of good ones, I think. And there's one that everybody's like, "Fuck that movie," but Kevin Smith, like Red State. Holy shit! Have you seen that?
Oh yeah, I love that
It's a
movie.
great fucking movie. And
That
yes, the
movie's.
one that everybody's kind of fucked, I think, is Tusk, which is
I
I like
like
Tusk.
I did too.
I thought Tusk was a pretty good flick. It's fucking weird, like a guy wanting to turn somebody into a fucking walrus, but whatever.
I wonder if that could be. Would you consider that a horror movie?
I I think so. I think
I
you
think you could
would,
squeeze that
or
in there.
horror
Yeah,
comedy maybe.
yeah. I think Tusk could fit. I'm trying to think of Red State. Red State would be kind of a more of a thriller, wouldn't it?
Yeah, definitely more of a
Or maybe
thriller, but I
a
mean
drama.
it's just like intense,
Oh, it's
violent.
way
Yeah,
intense.
yeah.
Yeah,
It's like,
it's a good
oh
flick.
yeah, Red State's a badass movie, man.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so as we're kind of wrapping things up here, like here's probably the toughest thing to answer of the day. In your opinion, what do you think is the scariest movie of all time?
Scariest movie of all time.
Yeah.
Wow.
I mean, I mentioned earlier The Exorcist. I kind of gravitate towards that.
Mm-hmm.
I also think one that's in the conversation is John Carpenter's The Thing, man. Holy fuck. That movie is
Yeah.
scary.
So I'm leaning towards. This is kind of left fieldish, but because I mean, it's like what? When it a PG movie? I'm leaning towards Jaws.
Ah, well, that's interesting too. Because if you think about it, I think that's one aspect about it. Like, because all these horror movies are so over the top and shit. But fucking Jaws, dude, it's like that shit could happen. I
Yeah.
think that's the
So,
scariest aspect of that is that shit could totally happen.
yeah, because I'm gonna say either Texas Chainsaw Massacre because it's just a simple fact that it's like you said about Jaws. It could happen.
Yeah, Texas Chain, it totally could and has fucking happened too.
Yeah.
Maybe not to that extent, but still there's some crazy fuckers out there who, yeah. I mean, it could be, yeah. I think the ones that really hit home are the ones where it's like, you know what, this shit could happen. It's
Yeah.
Jaws and like Texas Chainsaw. They're much more believable than say like putting Jason Voorhees or the Leprechaun in fucking space. I'm just saying. But I respect those for what they are.
Was there a leprechaun in space?
Leprechaun 4, baby. They put his ass in space.
Okay.
Fucking terrible movie, but I love it. Yeah.
I know he was in the hood twice.
Yeah, they took him in the hood twice, like, because once wasn't enough, man. They had to put him there 2 times. Oh man, we could just keep going on and on and on about horror movies, but
it's kind of funny when you open that box up.
Oh yeah.
How far you can go.
Yeah, because there's just so many things out there and like so many different genres. There's still shit we didn't touch upon. Like hell, I intended for us to talk about some Hitchcock stuff this time, and we didn't get to that. But you know what? That's what next year's for.
Yeah.
Well, hey, we hope you have enjoyed this episode of Coldcast, as we've been taking a look at some other horror movies throughout the years. Oh, the stuff we mentioned today, if you haven't seen it, go check it out, man. It's some good shit. And like, when you have so many streaming services out there that we mentioned today, seriously, sign up for them, especially Shudder. There's so much good shit on there. I mean, it just goes on and on. Well, that's going to wrap it up for this Coldcast. Until next time, I'm XLJ the OG. All right, and we'll see you next time. on another episode of Colecast. See you later, Dream Warriors.